Welcome back and Happy New Year, guys. I am recording this on January 1st, 2020. So, this video, of course, is going to be a December 2019 review. And towards the second half, we're going to review my entire year and, compare it to 2018 and then look what I'm going forward for 2019 or 2020. So, this review is going to be a little bit different. Usually past reviews, monthly reviews, I would do week by week. I did take a lot of trades this week or this month, and I decided I just handpicked the best and worst trades. So we're going to go over those. We're then going to look at some of the stats of this month because this month was quite different from past months. We're then going to go over my entire year, like I said, compare it to the past year, and then what I'm going to look forward to in 2020. So let's get started. The first couple trades that stand out to me were on the 9th, on this day. The first week here, very small wins, no trades I could really teach any lessons to you guys. The action really started happening in the second week. So the first one was MTNB. So looking at the chart, this is typically what I look for. It's actually even setting up again, so maybe in January I'll get another trade out of it. But I was looking at this day, right, on the 9th. And so if we go to intraday, of course, there is multiple green days in a row. And so I'm looking for the backside, right? I'm looking for the first red move. And so if this loads here we go. Is this it? I don't think this is it. Let's go further back. One more month. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay, no, we're good. All right. So yeah, you see this hard pull here. So again, grinding, it's accelerating. Final day, it gets the most accelerated it's ever done. And then we look at here. Morning spikes, just like the previous day, but it quickly fails, right? Huge push and stuff. And so at this point, I wasn't short yet. It pulls, I'm still not short. Now, the mistake people make is when they see this pull, like they frantic, or that's when the FOMO kicks in, right? You want to get short right away because it's dying. I waited. I actually then started timing this bounce pretty well and got short into these two pops right here. I then just stayed patient. I was willing to risk, I didn't want to risk all the way up into the 17, 18 level. That was quite far away, but VWAP was around like 205, 210. So I did want to see how it could even test VWAP, and it never even touched VWAP. So that worked out great. I just waited, pulled more, made a new low a day, and then it just absolutely shit itself. I covered into this pull, and I made a solid, I think it was like $800 or so. But again, the 9th is, I made 3,200, so where did the rest come from? That was from the next trade, which was YVR. Now, this was talked about in the Tim Challenge chat room quite a lot because Michael Good was letting us know that it was a listed stock promotion. There were emails going out. I did see emails getting sent to people, and so I was looking for the short. Now, I did get a little bit lucky because Interactive Brokers didn't have many shares to short of this stock. So I kept looking and I couldn't find any. I actually missed this little mini pull right here, making some money. And so I kept waiting, and it kept going. And I actually found shares to short, I believe, on the end of November, like the 26th. So I actually got short here in the 340s, and the top was only 360, right? So it was down very little for the entire trade. It then started pulling. I stayed patient, and I was looking for the low twos, right? I thought it can get as low as this last pull from the last dump. And so once it got to like the low twos, around 220 up in here, I just covered. I said I'm out. I made $2,400 because the interest fees were pretty high. I was paying like $20 at each night. So that ultimately led to $3,200 that day, which is very cool. Next up, I'm going to show you probably the two worst trades I had in terms of losses this month. Not necessarily the largest loss, but just dumb trading. First one here was DRVD. As you can see, again, multiple green days in a row, and I was not meticulous with this trade at all. I immediately saw this and had seen a couple signs that it was a pump and dump, and had heard it was a pump and dump from a few people, but I didn't do the research myself. And unfortunately, I started getting short. I think the 10th and 11th right here, thinking like, okay, I'm just going to swing it like YVR, right? Swing it a couple days, and it's going to die. Now, it did die after a few more weeks, but I did do some more research once I was short, and I couldn't prove enough of it that it was a pump and dump, right? Or that it was a promotion. Like, it had a couple sketchy signs, but it had news, and nothing was telling me that this was going to act like previous promotions. And unfortunately, if you look at the volume, this is really a liquid promotion, right? This is not something that I can take a large amount of size on and try to day trade, right? And that's what ultimately led to. Instead of me trying to swing it, I ultimately tried to day trade it and try to time a first red day because I didn't realize it, or realized it wasn't a promotion anymore, or I didn't think it was a promotion. And so that resulted in like $600 in losses. It just was a stupid trade. It's like, you'll learn that the longer you guys trade for, certain indicators either make or break your setup. Like this is still a setup. Like you could still short this, but because of the liquidity, because I wasn't meticulous in looking at, what was the actual news behind this, like why is the stock actually up, it became what I thought was a promotion short into turning into a day trade, turning into no setup at all for me to trade. So that's why I lost like that. I totally deserved that loss for not being meticulous and not paying attention to those things. So that was pretty annoying, but a lesson learned. Next up was RCAR. This has been a great run in the past. If you go back, a few years, I actually played this quite a few times, shorting this all in this run up here. But it's coming back. Not as big as volume in the past, but this run was still pretty nice. I did make money on this first red day, but unfortunately, I gave it all back because I made another mistake of not looking at the liquidity. So, in the intraday chart here, beautiful panic, right? I was short very few amount of shares, so I didn't make much on it, and I was all covered by like the 330s, right? 330, 340s, and I'm thinking this panic looks really, really good. I'm gonna try to dip buy this, right? Dip buying panics was one of the first setups I tried to learn to be profitable. They haven't showed up very much often as of lately, but I do want to be prepared when they come so I can keep playing them. Now, the problem is, and what I completely ignored was the volume, right? When you dip buy panics, volume is crucially important. It might be the most important thing when you dip buy. And as you can see here, there's barely 1 to 2,000 shares being traded a minute, right? That is not nearly enough, right? And so I tried dip buying it, and the moment I was in, I had realized I made a mistake, right? I had realized liquidity was not there. I should have noticed it before I got in, but I didn't. And so now I'm just stuck in this stock, right? I could sell for a big loss, but I tried to manage my way out of it. And ultimately I couldn't. I had to sell about for a 30-cent loss, and I had well over 100, or I had well over 1,000 shares. So I took I think a $400 or $500 loss. It was just an awful taste in my mouth because, it almost felt like I was just too rusty on dip buys. Right, I hadn't dip bought a stock in a very long time because these don't show up as much very often. But when you do, volume is crucial. This did not have the volume you need to dip buy it, and I paid the price for that. So, next trade, which is NK. We're now on to the 18th here. So we're skipping a few trades here, nothing too big. I did take a lot of trades, so I'm trying to, we'll be here for hours if I go through all the trades. But on the 17th, 18th is when NK started getting interesting. Big runner. I actually shorted it on the 17th here and on the 18th. A lot of good lessons from this trade because I kind of got caught in a tough position, but I managed it very, very well. And that was because I was aware of the price action as it was happening and from prior experience. So we're gonna go over that in detail. So this was the top day, massive parabolic blow off top. One setup that I am trying to learn is parabolic shorts. They are extremely risky, but I have been trying them with very small size, and I nailed this one very, very well. I took 500 shares, and I made 40 cents a share. I made $200 on this pull. Very quick pull, covered quickly, didn't want to overstay. In hindsight, it looks like I should have just held it for almost $1 a share. Could have made much more money, but again, I'm just testing the setup. This was the day I'm getting interested, right? This is the first red day after a huge blow off top, right? All this volume. I mean, look how massive this volume is, right? Think about it if you were in a long's perspective, right? And you're chasing this stock up and you buy a crap ton of shares, right? All of a sudden, all this volume, all these longs are underwater, right? If you bought it 470 or 460 or even 450, right? You were literally underwater the entire time, right? And that's where the most volume went through. So that's where most shares are being traded. So I'm now looking for the backside, right? All these people are underwater. They're going to eventually sell. This stock is eventually going to pull back. So the mistake I made was I was very, very eager with this trade, right? I wanted to get short early, and so I woke up for pre-market. I started getting short in pre-market. I got short all up in here, which wasn't necessary, right? I could have easily waited for the open. I could have easily waited for this spike, but it didn't. So I ended up having, an okay average in the 370s. It looked like it was going to work, but you can see this volume here, right? It's not dying. It's coming back. It's coming back. It then broke the new low day on this little wick and immediately saved itself. So when you see something like that, that's a red flag, right? When it makes a new low a day and rips right back to where it came from, that means someone soaked all those shares up, right? Someone just literally bought it right back to where it came from. And so I was kind of nervous, right? But it was still in my trade plan, so I held. I was going to risk $4, right? Now, as you see, it broke $4. And when it broke, I tried putting my order in. I missed my order, and it squeezed me. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to take a massive, much bigger loss than I want to because of slippage. Now, from prior experience, I have learned that there are sometimes, you don't break the rules, right? I was not going to let this keep going against me. Eventually, I was going to cut it. But from prior experience, you can try to read price action and see, was this the right area to cut it? And I was very aware in the moment, and I was looking back at this chart. So I had my order in at 4. If it came back down, I would have covered. If it pulled back to 4 and test. But you see all this resistance here, right? You see the resistance at 4. You see the resistance at like the 420 level, and even all the way up to the 430s and 440s. Now, I wasn't going to let it get that far against me, but I saw this level, and I thought to myself, if I hadn't shorted at pre-market, right? If I didn't have a 370s entry, I would probably be entering right here, right? Like I said, all these resistance levels previously, if I wasn't short already, I want to get short now risking off these levels, right? Because like I said, there's all these back holders, there's all these people underwater that want to sell. So if I wasn't short already, I'd want to get short now. And so as I had my order waiting to get filled, I had this thought, I'm like, no, this is when I would enter if I wasn't in here. So I quickly canceled my order, right? My new risk was now the 420 level because the high was 415. So I said, if it breaks a new high, then I'm wrong. Like I'm dead wrong. I'll just take the bigger loss. I was going to lose maybe $700 or $800. Like I'll just take it. And then all of a sudden we panicked. We failed the whole 4, right? We pull back, and so I was right? This would have been the time to enter short, right? Now of course I had the crappier average at 370, but eventually it pulled down to 350s, 340s, where I did cover for about $500 to $600. So again, the risk reward wasn't great. I was going to lose potentially 700 to only make 500 or 600. But again, that experience that I've had with this trade helped me be very hyperactive and realize in the moment, like, no, this is an entry, right? This is not the time to cover. So that was very good. That just takes time and a lot of experience to have. And that was that with this trade. Next, we're going to go to December 20th, which is the end of the third week. And that's when we actually started getting some great OTC runners, right? We had TMRC and CYDY. And I was looking for the first red day here. This chart's, my data's a little messed up here, but it did run from 30 cents all the way up to like 65, 70 cents. And so I was looking for a pullback, right? This is an OTC with volume. We haven't had these in quite a long time. And so I was very interested in this trade. So if you look here, again, almost similar to NK, right? It had a kind of like almost like a parabolic blow off top, right? I did not short this move here, but I was looking for the next day, right? And so you have this resistance level at like 66, 67 from this bounce that failed. And so when it opened, it gapped up to that level, but clearly couldn't break, and it started panicking right out the gate. I then started getting short. It then held red with this little green candle, couldn't go back green. And I just held, stayed patient. I had my risk on the 67 level, and I just let it fade, right? And unfortunately, very quickly, this panic started coming. And so I covered in the low 50s for like $600, and then I left for the rest of the day. Like this bounced and actually kept going higher. And I actually then shorted it into this week. I got short. So again, making new highs over $1. It then it fails to break over like 120, right? And actually has a fake out, right? Anyone who bought this breakout over 112 quickly got underwater, right? They're now underwater, and now fades even lower. And I think the red-green move was like 79 or 97. And so we're approaching that level. I start shorting this bounce. I then add on this red move, which ended up working perfectly because it panicked pretty hard. I covered about a third of my shares into here and a little bit more into the close. Now, in hindsight, I should have covered right here. But again, if you looked at the daily chart in the beginning, this thing's very overextended. I wanted more downside. I thought there could be more downside, but come into, Tuesday, New Year's Eve, it just didn't die, right? It never went red. I had to cover and give back most of my profits. I did make about $200 on the trade, but I was up $1,200 at like as low as 90 cents when it was down here. So a little bit frustrating, but it happens. The other OTC short was TMRC. The big one I had on it was on the 20th. So December 19th to 20th. Let's go in there. Because again, same thing to CYDY, right? A beautiful OTC runner with a lot of volume, and I'm looking for the first red day. And now again, this has not gone red, right? Every single day it has held the red-green level, right? It has not taken any prints on the red side of this stock or of the percentage. So right here, it's closes strong, closes near its highs, but in the morning you see this volume, right? And it doesn't go anywhere. It barely spikes like 5 cents. And so quickly, that to me is a failed morning spike. This is failing, so I start getting short. I get lucky with a 103 fill, which isn't great, but at the time, I was sitting on the ask. So instead of hitting the bid, someone actually came up and bought me on the ask, and I had 10,000 shares. And so I quickly covered into the low 90s here. I then stayed patient with the other, I think, 7,000 shares that I had. I then let this panic, and I was unfortunately all out by the low 80s. Not even low 80s, like mid 80s was my best cover. And of course, it goes even lower into the 70s. But, again, it's hard to time these things. Like, if it doesn't have a perfect panic to, time the bottom, for a potential dip buy, you're not going to be able to time it very well. And as you can see, this kind of, grinded all day lower. So it's very hard to time that top or that bottom. So not a big deal. And I actually avoided this squeeze, right? If I held overnight, I would have woken up to, I think they put out another PR, and this thing just ripped, right? Ripped the new highs, which was good, though, because at the same time, I avoided that loss, and I'm now looking to reshort it. Now, the very frustrating part was here. So it goes a whole nother day, and I'm looking for it to go red again, right? Because, again, it gapped up, didn't go red, so I'm thinking, okay, it's higher again, and it could potentially have another red day, right? Another great time to short. This time, I missed this move, right? And it's almost the same, right? Spikes, has a very weak spike, doesn't go anywhere, and then pulls. This was incredibly quick. I missed this pull entirely, which was very frustrating. But I then got back in on these bounces. I stayed patient. I held all day, or all throughout the day, and then overnight. Now, this is very similar to my last CYDY trade on New Year's Eve, where that it went sideways in the close, and it closed right in the day, but it should have been a little bit weaker, right? There's something about this price action that I was watching in the moment, and it was like something doesn't feel right. And unfortunately, I should have listened to myself, but I didn't, and I held overnight. And so come into the morning, we spike, right? And this volume is big, so I'm thinking, crap, I need to get out, and I'm trying incredibly hard to get filled. And for whatever reason, maybe my software was laggy, maybe this stock is just hard to fill on, but I couldn't get a fill to save my life. And so I just tried chasing. I couldn't afford for this to keep going and break 150 and then 160 and then 170. And all of a sudden, I'm in this massive loss that is just completely not acceptable, right? And so I'm trying to get out at all costs. And of course, I literally cover the dead top. I'm sure most of you have had something like this. It happened to me. It's going to happen to everyone at some point in your trading career. If it hasn't happened, be prepared for it to happen. So 148 was the top, and I filled 148. So right when I filled, immediately panicked, went red in the day. Very frustrating because I could have at least got out for break even a small profit. But regardless, this trade was not going to work, right? Even if I reshorted here, it never went lower, and then it went back green and squeezed even higher after that. So, it's just how it is. Some trades are not going to work your way. Some trades are going to be incredibly annoying, like this one was for me. And, that was that. Luckily, from my first trade back in here, I made, 1,100. On this trade, I only lost about 700, so still green on the ticker. So not the worst thing in the world. Next trade, the 24th. So this was my first red day of the month. It was also my first loss to break my listed streak. I actually had 20 listed wins in a row, which is by far the best streak I think I've ever had. So it was really, really cool to see. But this stock did break that streak. Not a big deal, but the trade was something that I just felt like I shouldn't have taken, and I want to go over it because I was having order problems with my broker. For whatever reason, whatever route I was trying to use, they were not letting me get filled. And so I had to chat with them. I had to like call them up on web chat, and I had to like try to figure it out with them. And so by the time they had told me, oh, use this route or this route should work, I was ready to enter orders. The problem is I was now so flustered, right? I kept feeling like this was going to die without me. And so by the time I got my orders working, I just started entering, right? I just started shorting into this dip because I thought this was a lower high. So I just started shorting. I didn't like watch the price action. I didn't, consider where VWAP was. I just started shorting. And so unfortunately, as you see, it didn't die. It was very strong. It stayed strong. And I just covered into as it was breaking these new highs. That luckily was only a $420 loss, which is totally manageable. But in hindsight, it's like, I should have never taken this trade, right? I shouldn't have let my, like eagerness and like feeling I'm missing the play and the stress of like trying to figure out my orders to work through my broker that, it caused me to impulsively enter this trade or too quickly enter this trade without, really taking another deeper look at it, because looking in hindsight, I feel like I could have waited, right? I could have been like, okay, let me see if it actually breaks this low and then I'll enter on the bounce, right? I could have been much more patient with it instead of just entering and all of a sudden getting squeezed higher. What was frustrating even more though was that then the next day, the actual, red day came and my broker Cobra restricted shares to short. So I took a loss being able to short this day. The next day they restricted the stock because probably too many people took losses on it. And now I completely missed this. So it happens. It sucks, but it's part of the game, and I just got to suck it up. So then next best day I had was the 27th here. This was a really great day because I thought I was going to have a first red week because this 26th was when I took that huge loss on TMRC where I covered dead top. So at this point I'm down, $1,200 on the, almost $1,200 on the week. So I'm thinking, okay, another red week, that sucks, but it'll happen. But then come the 27th, a lot of great plays. CLSD came along, TXR or CTXR, and NLNK came. And so all these were the same setup, the exact same setup. All of them were the first red day move. All of them had never gone red before. And so I was just looking for when it went red, right? If you look at CLSD, it failed. It was fading into the close. And so the next morning it gapped down just barely. And it never even went green. So I got short in this bounce, and it pulled quickly. I had a solid cover sitting there and at 820 or 284. So, if you didn't have an order ready here, you weren't going to get filled. Like you had to be insanely quick to cover even maybe in the like 290s. But luckily I just timed it well and I had an order ready. So I made like $900 in that one. That was a very sweet feeling. TCRX was the same thing. It had never gone red before. So, once it failed to break these highs, it went red. I then covered when it broke $1. Pretty much very similar looking chart to CLSD, so I don't think I need to go to the intraday there. And then same thing with NLNK. It almost seems, I don't want to make it sound too easy, right? Because it's not, right? You need to have a good trade plan. But it's sometimes like when we're in winter trading and there's a lot of opportunities like there was this month, some they just give their money away to you, right? If you can be patient and wait for the most obvious signs, it's almost like taking money from a baby, right? I don't want to make it sound easy because believe me, I've taken numerous losses trying to learn how to trade this setup well. But once you get it, today, like trading on this day just felt like euphoric. I was like, this is like, I didn't do any work. Like what just happened? You know what I mean? So just really good feeling, right? Again, same thing. This one tried to spike a little bit, but again, failed very quickly, went back red, and the rest is history, right? It just faded into the first red day, no problem. So that was pretty much that most favorite day of the month, or that was my most favorite day of the month. And then these two days I still have to upload to Profitly, but they were, MREO. Again, first red day, very similar, right? As all the other past trades, just literally had no morning spike, failed right down the open, and I just covered into weakness for, I think it was like $900. Right, perfect. Panicked right away. I mean, I literally covered within 5 minutes. It's just another one of those days where like this trade just worked incredibly well, right? FSEL is still a play. A lot of people are going to want to short this starting into the new year, and I took a couple like small losses the past 2 days trying to short it. I took a couple starters, and each time it held and kept going up. So I'll be looking for the backside of this, but for right now, I need to wait for more clear backside move because, I tried shorting here when it failed or when it was like having a weak open, and all of a sudden it rebounds, so I had to cut it. Same thing the next day, it had a fake weak open and held together, and then I had to cut it again. So, that's a trend, right? So something I might be looking for into 2020 is not a weak open, right? Maybe we spike straight out the open, like extremely hard, and we have a huge stuff move, and then we go red, right? That's a trend change. Or we just go red out of the open. Seeing something like a weak pull and it's still holding green and holding, that's something I would be worried about, right? Because that's not a trend change. That's the same thing we're seeing over and over again. So that's something to look for into this first week of 2020. So I know that was a lot. That was pretty much my month. I'd end up being, $10,500, which is now, my second best month of the year. So I'm super happy about that. Win rate was incredibly high because, again, a lot of these plays just worked really well for me. A lot of these plays just appeared like all at once. Like I said, like I took 3 trades on the 27th. Like I rarely ever take 3 trades in one day. So they just worked really, really well. Although I did have to give up some risk reward, right? I did win a lot, but if you look here, my average win is 500, my average loss is 400. Normally, I like having my average win at least double the size of my average loss. Does that always happen? No, but for my average loss to be 400 and only my average win 500, that's pretty close. That was, going over my trade, that was what it explains itself because when I did take a loss, it was massive. It was the biggest loss I wanted to take on that particular stock. And like one with like TMRC where I bought dead top, like there was a lot of slippage on that one. There were other many trades where I got partial fills on, so it was like, say it was another first red day move, maybe I got like half size. So instead of making 800-900, I only made 300, right? So that's going to bring my average down. So that's why that's the case for those wins. In terms of listed stocks, I had like I said, I had 20 wins in a row. That is so foreign to me, right? I don't think I've ever had a streak of listed wins in a row ever, right? And so this month just came out of nowhere, and I just killed it. And I wanted to look into this, and so I'm going to show you this to you guys. My first 11 months of 2019 for just listed trades, I made $8,600, right? So I've always been profitable trading listed, but compared to OTCs, it's a no-brainer. Like I've made almost like 5 to 6, 7 times more on OTCs than I have on listed, right? But just in December alone, I've literally made more money in just this month on listed stocks than my entire year, right? And so that just shows how much I've gotten better at them and how, on fire we are in this market and in December. Most of my trades are OTCs. This month, 75% of my trades were listed. Usually it's the other way around. 75% of my trades are OTCs. So I'm getting much more comfortable with them. Like I said, I had a 20 win streak. Which doesn't really mean much, right? I've said this a few times now with listed having a win streak, but reality, what does it make a difference? If I had 25 wins or 15 wins in a row, it doesn't matter. The point was it just gave me an indication, and hopefully can give you guys an indication when you look at your streaks, like where are you getting better, right? Are you improving in certain areas? And that was, very much the case for me. So that was really good feeling. And something that I think got me to this point was that if you've watched my past monthly recaps, you've seen me get killed on some listed stocks, right? Like FCell back in, I think it was July, or NAT back in October, right? I took these losses where, after 2 or 3 trades in a matter of minutes, I was down over $1,000. And so it kind of hit me this month where I was like, enough's enough, right? I need to figure it out. And I think I did, right? This month, this market might just be easy in terms of making money on listed stocks for me. So we'll see how it goes in the future. But I feel like I really kind of got it down now. Like of course there's much more to learn, but I just kind of got tired of just taking dumb trades and not being meticulous enough and looking at all the indicators, right? And that was something, a huge takeaway I took away, and I took away this month that I wanted to kind of reiterate to you guys was that, I also learned that, you don't take the same risk for a trade, right? Some people would argue against that and say you should be taking the same amount of risk every single time. Like if you want to risk $400, you should risk $400 on every single trade. I've learned to do quite the opposite, right? The same risk that I'm going to take on like SAVA and lose $400 is not the same risk I'm going to take on like CLSD, right? They're both listed runners and they're both having the same setup, right? but they just are not, in terms of like news, volume, price action, right? There's so many indicators that are going to let you know, how much risk you should take, right? And so I've learned that taking bigger risks on the more ideal plays, and it sounds obvious, like of course you take more risks on the better plays, right? But really analyzing how good is this trade, right? Is it an A, is it a B, is it a C, is it a D, in the terms of ranges of setups that you have, is going to pay off massively, right? And you should take risks according to how ideal each one is. And for a long time, I just didn't do that. I did not do it as meticulously or as seriously as I should have. This month, I definitely did that, and of course, it paid off big time. So that is definitely something I want to take into the new year. Now, that's it for the monthly review. We're going to go into the yearly review. I'm not going to necessarily go over any charts, but I did want to show you this format of how I look at my year. I actually did get this from Tim Grattani. Not this technically format, but if you've watched his videos, he has charts looking like this, or he did have a monthly or a yearly review where he did like kind of make something like this. And so I just made it myself. You can do your own version, however best works for you. There's really no formulas in here. It's just me inputting in numbers. And so, something I want to show you is comparing your best and worst days, trades, months, weeks, like comparing it all, right? You need to see on all time frames of, how well you're trading. And so we're just going to go through, briefly go through all this. So, 5 biggest wins were BEAG, CLCI, VCX, OIL, and PXPP. All of these were promotions, right? And so that's a huge tell for me. Like I already knew this, right? I already knew this is the fact, but you can do this for you, right? If you look at your, 5 biggest wins and they're all dip buys, right? That's a huge indicator to tell you, okay, like that's what I should be focusing on, right? And that's what I'm be focusing for me. Like I have always prioritized promotions as my main play because all these wins are massive, right? They're all, just under or over $4,000, which is huge. Now, in terms of 5 biggest losses, EMIS, ARCI, TMRC, which was this month, right, from the slippage, Sears, and FCell. Like I said, FCell was when I got, this loss was back in July when I got clobbered. I just, was trying to get hold of listed stocks and I was just absolutely getting destroyed. ACR was another big squeezer where I had a lot of slippage. Shield Q was a lot of slippage. And EMIS was a trade that back in March where I thought I could size up. And I couldn't. I took I probably took the biggest position I've ever taken on that stock, and I had a terrible entry. And because of that, I was so emotional about it to the point where I just covered and took a $1,500 loss on a trade that eventually worked. Right, I would have ended up making like $3,000 on this trade, but all these lessons from getting squeezed, with those listed stocks and just position sizing, led to those big losses. So those are the things I have to work on in 2020. Now, best days was April 10th and July 23rd. These 2 days were clearly my pump and dump profits. So usually when I profited on these promotions on these days, that led to the biggest day of the year. That makes sense. Same thing with March 18th. That was the day I lost on EMIS. October 9th, I believe that was the day that I lost on NAT. I will link the videos below of me going over these trades in the monthly recaps. But October 9th was when I got destroyed on NAT within the first 5 minutes of the open. Which again, as I mentioned, was what led me to realize I have to be more meticulous with what I short and how I short it. 2 best weeks and worst weeks. Again, these are the weeks that I just had to happen to have promotion or happen to profit on promotions. Worst week ever was 1,700. That again was part of this FCell loss. I took 3 losses on FCell to lead to 1,700. May 6th to 10th, I don't even really remember that. It just happened to be a month, or I look back at it and it happened to be a week. I just took multiple losses in a row to lead to 1,000. So not too bad. This is huge too. 2 best months, 2 worst months. You see they're both green. That tells me, right, I was profitable every month, which is great to see. Some of you guys will probably have your worst months be red, and that's fine, right? That's okay. You're not necessarily going to be profitable every month. I'm just a very conservative trader, so if I do end up getting close to red on the month, I play defense. I play hard defense, right? I'd rather just be green every month and make nothing or break even than trying to force something to happen when I can't see the market clearly and end up being red on the month. So, and then here, win rate is 60%. These are just the averages of every month that I've had put together, and then average week, average month. Total percent return on capital was almost 200%, and then total profit for the year was $92,000. This does not include borrow fees, so after borrow fees, I believe I'm probably around maybe $4,000 or $5,000 in borrow fees, so it's going to be an 8,600, maybe 8,700, somewhere around there, which is still fine, still a great month for me, or still a great year for me, best year I've had so far. And because if you compare it to 2018, I did the same thing from last year. I did have a bigger percent return on 280%, excuse me, but I only made 32,000, right? So I nearly almost tripled my profits year over year. So that's great to see. Like, I'm growing. Same thing with average win to average loss, right? Average win was 260. This year it was almost 600, so almost double. Average loss was 123. Average loss was almost 280. So again, doubling the loss did also double the gains. Win rates were about the same, a little bit lower this year, but I'm okay with that. An average percent gain, average percent loss about the same, 11 and 12%. And same thing with cent gain, 35 cents versus 13, and 33 cents versus 16. So still similar stats to 2018, but again, I'm able to just size up bigger and, emotionally handle more dollar size or more dollar risk, which leads to bigger profits, right? So that's something I really want. I'm really happy about. Now, if you looked at this, I actually tweeted this out a couple days ago, right? Yesterday, I think. I was looking and hoping for that my second half of 2019 was going to be my biggest, 6-month period yet, right? I thought I could really push it and get, $3,200 a week, average $300 a week. Now, that was not the case. I only averaged about almost $1,600, but that's okay, right? I'm not like devastated that I didn't do that, right? The worst thing you do is try to force something to try to get myself to $3,200 a week, than just trading well and have you get there unnaturally, right? Forcing it would have led to much more losses. It would have led to me not even averaging this month. I probably would have averaged even lower if I tried forcing things. So that's okay. And there's a lot of factors as to why I think this happened, right? This summer was probably the slowest summer I've seen in my trading career. There's a reason why people, like a lot of traders, take off during the summer, because it just is slow. This is the first year where it's been incredibly slow. Like I said, if you watch my past recap videos, I've been trying to learn listed stocks more and better over the months. So that has led to a lot more losses. But of course, that has paid off this month with, my second best month of the year. So there's a lot of factors in. You can't always be growing and being the best possible trader you can be. There's going to be setbacks. And so the fact that this is the second half of the year where I've been less profits than the first half, it's not necessarily discouraging. It's just something I need to look at and be aware of. And so in 2020, I just want to make sure to prevent that, or just look at other ways I'm growing. Like, I just want to make sure I'm not being stagnant, right? That I'm not decreasing. I'm not getting worse as a trader, right? And so, from those things, acknowledging those things and seeing that I still am getting better at listed tells me I'm on the right track, even though this wasn't what I wanted. For the second half, it is okay. I'm still growing. I'm still getting better. So it's not the end of the world. So, that's pretty much it, guys, in terms of going into 2020. I don't have any expectations. I don't like having expectations for how much I'm going to make. But at the same time, if my stats are any indication of my future returns, which Wall Street would tell you is not true, I would argue with that. But, if I tripled my profits from 2018 to 2019. So if I could triple my profits again in 2020 and make, what is it, 90,000 times 3, 27 or 270,000. I mean, again, I know expectations. If I make that much, I will be thrilled. If I don't make that much, oh well, right? This will be the last time you see this room. I am, officially moving out. So I'm going to start paying rent. I'm going to have more expenses. So I have thoroughly thought that through. I am pulling a large amount out of my account so I can literally live off that for the next 6 months to a year. So my accounts can go untouched, and I'm just going to work on that and trying to keep managing my risk the same way, keep trading better, and that's about it. That's about it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. I know this is a long video, but I'll put a link in the description below of the times so you guys can see which ones are more important. So yeah, thanks, guys. See ya.